Well, hello, Stan Seder. Say hi to your ex-wife for me, would you? See the links in the video description. This whole transcript will be on Rumble, not on YouTube, because YouTube sucks. But we've got Stan Seder. Give you the gist of this. Stan Seder's out there having autistic fits, say over their COVID virus and talking. He's trying to defend the lockdowns. We can control a respiratory virus. Well, if we can control a respiratory virus, how come we can't control HIV and AIDS? Okay, so here's the spiel I've got written out. Again, I got a ton of links in there for you. This isn't going to be one of like Stan Seder's 10-minute videos where he autistically repeats talking points that Irma Vegetable or whatever her name is feeds him in his ear and then goes on to another subject. It's going to be detailed. Approximately 1.2 million people in the U.S. have HIV. About 13% of them don't know it and need testing. I should also mention you can get COVID or the flu, pneumonia, minding your own business, just walking, if they let you out of your house. So I don't know how many people get if they locked everybody in the house, except for the hood rats, because they're still going to go out there and kill each other. So maybe you can get COVID and you're not minding your own business. So, but I don't know. But HIV and AIDS, yeah, got to be doing something for that. HIV continues to have, this is from the CDC, a disproportionate impact on certain populations. Kind of like homicide. Major homicide problems in America. Certain demographics are having a major problem with that. I wonder what that would be. HIV continues to have disproportionate impact on certain populations, particularly racial and ethnic minorities. Is there anything that doesn't have a disparate impact on racial and ethnic minorities? Is there anything? Come on, guys. Hey, I do have a question, too. Getting a little off script here. How come Asians don't have the HIV infection rates that blacks and Hispanics have? Because Asians are a minority. How come Asians aren't killing each other in the streets left and right like blacks are in so many cities? Does it have something to do with daddy being in the home? HIV continues to have a disproportionate impact on certain populations. The CDC's racist here, particularly racial and ethnic minorities and homosexual, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men. That has nothing to do with racial bigotry, racism, stigma, this is me again, dogma, homophobia, or anything else. It has to do with culture and behavior. And I urge you to go to this CDC data and look at the infection rates of Asians on these and all that. Just look through that and just think, why is it so low for Asians? And I'm Asian, so that makes me pretty important and great. If you are engaging in unprotected or sometimes even protected anal sex with men that you met a few minutes ago at a drug-fueled rave, do not be surprised when you end up with AIDS or HIV or some other STD. The acts that those groups engage in are more likely to end up transmitting those viruses, which is why it is mostly a homosexual phenomenon. If you are sharing needles, HIV was called the junkie flu back in the late 70s in New York. If you are sharing needles in the process of killing yourself with drugs, you are far, far more likely to end up with AIDS or HIV than someone who is only having sex with his own wife. When Kathleen Sebelius marked an anniversary of America's fight against HIV, she mentioned Ryan White, which is very disingenuous at best, fallacious at worst. Contracting HIV via blood transfusion has been rare for a very long time. Again, the most afflicted groups are homosexual men and or drug addicts, particularly black men. It's a conspiracy. Just as homicide is mostly a black male on black male phenomenon, so goes the AIDS virus. It's not infecting every demographic at the same level. To say otherwise is beyond stupid or someone has an agenda. Because so if someone says, Asian men are just getting the AIDS virus pretty bad. No. In 2019, an estimated, now remember, we can control COVID. If you listen to Stan Seder while he's sitting on his fat ass doing nothing, we can control that COVID virus. We can dang near eradicate it. But listen to this. In 2019, an estimated 34,800 new HIV infections occurred in the U.S. New HIV infections declined 8% from 37,800 in 2015 to 34,800 in 2019. after a period of general stability. In 2020, 30,635 people received an HIV diagnosis in the U.S. and 6 dependent areas. Keep in mind, the pandemic may have caused less people to get tested, so who knows how many more people there are out there that have HIV and they don't know it. So if you don't have a one-night stand, you increase your chances of not getting HIV. By age group, the annual number of HIV infections, this is important, in 2019 compared with 2015, decreased among persons aged 13 to 24 and persons aged 45 to 54, but remained stable among all other age groups. In 2019, the rate was the highest for persons aged 25 to 34, followed by the rate for persons aged 35 to 44. So again, homicide, certain demographics are more affected than others, young black males, and with AIDS, it tends to be homosexual men who are pretty young, because I consider 44 young. Stan Seder, he's old. He's an old guy. By race, ethnicity, the annual number of HIV infections in 2019 compared with 2015 decreased among persons of multiple races, but remained stable for persons of all other races / ethnicities. In 2019, the highest rate, was for black persons, followed by Hispanic / Latino persons and persons of multiple races. Oh my gosh, I didn't see Asians mentioned in there, or whites. I wonder why. It's got to be some kind of conspiracy. It's got to be some racial component to this. By HIV transmission category, the annual number of HIV infections in 2019 compared with 2015 decreased among males with transmission attributed to male-to-male sexual contact, but remained stable among all other transmission categories. In 2019, the largest percentages of HIV infections were attributed to male-to-male sexual contact, 66% overall, and 81% among males. But yet, Kathleen Sebelius was, during the Obama administration, long after, we'd figured out what the deal is with this AIDS virus, she's still talking about Ryan White. Huh. In 2020, homosexual men accounted for 71% of new HIV diagnoses in the United States. In 2020, homosexual black men accounted for 26% of new HIV diagnoses. And 39% of diagnoses among all homosexual men and black men are about 6.6% of the population, do the math. From 2015 to 2019, the HIV infection rate was 14.06 per 100,000. AIDS classifications, put classifications in quotes, from 2015 to 2019 were 6.48 per 100,000. Hey, Stan Seder, I have a question, old man. Can we ban sodomy again in the interest of public health? Not sure how we would enforce it, but if you were consistent, you would be calling out this behavior on a regular basis, but you do not, because it would undermine this bizarre LGBT obsession you have. The divorcee Stan Seder thinks we can control a respiratory virus, yet the HIV infection rate, which has dropped significantly from the 2010 to 2014 timeframe, the HIV infection rate remains a nagging problem, and it is entirely preventable if the homosexual population would do what Raymond Burr did, a fine actor by the way, and have one partner most of his life. I got freedom to have sex with as many people, so I can have sex with whoever I want, and consenting adults, and as many as I want. Okay, well, when you get AIDS, I'm not paying for any of your medication. Thanks. Either that or refrain from that sick, deviant behavior and get off the drugs, or at least quit sharing needles. AIDS and HIV are very, very preventable. Yet it remains, and this moron thinks we can stop COVID-19 with ineffective lockdowns and other measures, which are as useful as a millstone around your neck while treading water. I estimate from the CDC data that of the 191,401 HIV diagnoses from 2015 to 2019, 65.87% were from men having sex with men. Just that small group. Less than 4% of the population. Be advised, the category of, quote, male-to-male sexual contact and injection drug use, end quote, is counting people who are engaging in both of those behaviors while passing the AIDS virus to their partner. 65.87% of those diagnoses from homosexual men alone. That is disproportionate. From 2015 to 2019, Of the 144,661 folks who died from AIDS or HIV, 42.3% of them were homosexual men. This does not include drug addicts sharing needles. This metric is much different from infections because the difference could be because of health factors. Depending on how soon you were diagnosed, and the CDC estimated that 13% of those infected do not know it. So if they are engaging in a lot of one-night stands, this may lead to a lot more deaths. If the person infected was not very healthy at the time of infection and did not get diagnosed for many months versus a person who was young and healthy but was diagnosed relatively soon, that is likely the difference in the percentages. From 2015 to 2019, of the 88,246 AIDS classifications, in quotes, I got it linked there, you'll see what I mean. From 2015 to 2019, of the 88,246 AIDS classifications, 54.94% were men engaging in homosexual activity. This does not include persons who are injecting themselves with toxic waste and those who are engaging in homosexual activity and sharing needles at the same time. Again, the Divorcee Sam Seder believes we can control a respiratory virus that originated in China, but apparently we cannot control the behavior of irresponsible homosexual men and or drug addicts. Sam Seder, is either delusional or a complete moron. I will allow you to make the decision. STD infection rates for gonorrhea, congenital syphilis, early non-primary, non-secondary syphilis, and primary and secondary syphilis have skyrocketed since 2015, largely preventable again. The only outlier was chlamydia, which was rising steadily since 2014 and took a break in 2020. Which may be the only because people were terrified by evil politicians into staying in their house because their COVID virus was stalking everyone in the streets, killing indiscriminately. It was a harbinger of death, or so we were told. So other STDs are saying, rates go up. And they're largely preventable. But like I said again, I can have sex with as many consenting adults as I... Okay, well, when you get any healthcare legislation going through Congress, will not earmark any money for STD treatment since it's entirely preventable. You're not just walking down the street one day, oh man, I got AIDS. Now you can walk down the street and get the flu, walk a couple blocks down the road, go by some groups of people, go shopping, go home and feel like crap, you got the flu. Well, that's not going to happen with AIDS. Oh, just minding my own business, I got HIV. Lastly, what COVID-19 like hysterical mandates would the Divorcee Sam Seder enact to control HIV or any other STD? Ban sodomy? Prison terms for sodomy? How about we shut down homosexual bars? Most Democrat governors were fined shutting down tens of thousands of legitimate businesses because of a respiratory virus that has a survival rate of 99.9014% for those under 50, but HIV has no cure. Can we shut down homosexual bars in an effort to eradicate HIV? Does he want me to pay the health care costs of irresponsible, mostly young homosexual men because they're degenerate? I would wager Stan wouldn't personally pay the health care costs of men in New York City living with HIV, but he's okay with taxpayers in Iowa and 49 other states doing so. Like Stan here, let me give you an example. Let's say one of your idiot kids goes off to college for a semester and a half and then drops out, but you're paying for it. And then a year later they do the same thing and they go for a semester and a half and drop out. And then they want to, how many times would you do that before you said no more? But if it's spread out among all taxpayers, you don't care. You're really generous with other people's money. When Sam Seder gets off his fat ass and eliminates HIV from existence, I will think about going along with him on his COVID-19 lockdowns and mandates, but not until then. Notice I said I will think about it. I am also keeping my AR-15 and my .357 revolver. That, however, is not a negotiation. Have a nice day, and don't thank me now for the slapdown of the vacuous social media vegetable and currently divorced person, Sam Seder. You'll find this funny. This is in my COVID, on my website I have a COVID hub. Well, I got tons of essays. That's better than listening to Sam Seder, flap his gums endlessly for 15 minutes on a bunch of crap and, just autistically repeat talking points. I have actual data, but here, Fauci cautions against dining out even when vaccinated, which kind of tells me he doesn't think the vaccines do very well. But forgetting that for a second, you can't dine out even when you're vaccinated. But then he endorsed Tinder hookups, so you can get on Tinder or whatever other websites they got, find some hussy, find some beer swilling hussy, or find some other guy, or who knows. God knows what goes on there. I don't want to hear about it either. But if you're willing to take the risk, so if you're willing to have a one-night stand and engage in anal sex with someone you just met, or vaginal sex, you could get some stuff from that too, from somebody you just met. Yeah, if you're willing to take the risk, but you're not like, but you can't take the risk if you're like me, under 50. See, I'm not a fat pile of crap. I'm not a fat tub of Crisco. I probably do more miles on the trail than all of Stan Seder's. Well, I guarantee I've done more miles on the trail in the last year than Stan Seder has probably in 20 years, sitting on his fat ass all day in the studio doing nothing. But you can go out and have a one-night stand if you're willing to take the risk. But if you're under 50 and totally healthy, and you're in an age group that has well over a 99.9% survival rate, you can't even go out to eat. You can't make this crap up. Like one commenter said, this is just ridiculous. Fauci cautions against dining out even when vaccinated. But, Tinder hookups are okay if you want to take the risk. Yeah, man, go nuts, whatever. Just I thought I didn't mention that too. That's just incredible hypocrisy and stupidity. So I'm starting to question Fauci's cognitive faculties as well as Joe Biden's. Yeah, man, no joke. No malarkey. Corn pop.